Thank you for joining us. I am Leron Brummel. As we look at government's first year in office, our first conversation is with the Minister within the Ministry of Housing and Water, Susan Rodrigues. Minister, before we get right into it, a year in office for you, how has your experience been so far?
It's been the best year of my life. And I say that because it's been both challenging and rewarding, in the sense that I feel like I've been given the opportunity to really make a difference in people's lives, to make an impact in people's lives, improve the well-being of the lives of ordinary Guyanese. This is a strategic ministry. In order to carry out that mission, the Ministry of Housing and Water is very significant in our country. And so I'm very grateful for the opportunity to have been able to serve for the past year. I am fulfilling my dreams. Is the whole reason I entered politics in the first place, is to make a positive impact and to bring about positive change. And so this year has been a really great year. It's been tough, a lot of hard work, but I enjoy every day of it.
And it's interesting that you found you're in government for a year, but you came in at the point of the pandemic.
Yeah.
And I know that at some point that has slowed the pace at which your ministry would have wanted to execute its works. Now that we talk about that, what would you say were maybe 2 or 3 of the major projects that your ministry has been able to implement within the past year?
It's difficult to limit it to 2 or 3 because we have made significant improvements in the housing and water sector. You know, if the good thing about having a manifesto, and I have my manifesto right here at hand, it's on my desk. It's such a blessing to have, because when we drafted Manifesto 2020, it really set the roadmap. It's the guide for our first term in office. And so it makes it easy for us. We have direction. Whenever we're in doubt, we have direction. We know what are the commitments. We know what our mandate is to the people of Guyana. And so immediately when we took office, we started to implement that program. There were policy decisions that had to be made immediately, and we did that in our first budget, the emergency budget in 2020, such as the removal of VAT on construction and building materials to promote home ownership, the increasing the mortgage interest relief ceiling from 15 to 30 million, so that young people can be encouraged to build their own homes. Moving the NBS ceiling from 12 to 15 million, giving people more scope. Engaging with the banks to lower interest rates. Now Guyanese can borrow at as low as 4% on residential mortgages. So those are some of the policy decisions. Restoring the water subsidy to pensioners, zero rating water, and many other policy decisions that positively impacted the sector. Then, of course, we know what our mandate is in the housing sector. 50,000 lots in our first term, 10,000 annually. So what we did was immediately start to identify and acquisition lands and acquire lands from 𝐎𝐍𝐄, NISIL, etc., so that we can start to implement our housing program to ensure that we have enough lands and conduct our surveys and our plans and prepare for allocations, not just in the short term, but in the long term, because we know what that target is of 50,000. In addition to that, we have ongoing works in our existing housing schemes, upgrading works, and of course new infrastructural works in our new housing schemes, which has pumped billions of dollars from last year, August to now, billions of dollars into our local economy, creating jobs. Thousands of jobs have been created in the construction sector, promoting home ownership like I said, through policy measures and also through the construction of homes that we are executing through public-private partnerships with private developers in the private sector. And so we have ongoing projects as we speak. 200 young professional houses are under construction in Providence, and we have plans to expand that young professional program in Prospect, Little Diamond, and Great Diamond. We also have 190 homes that is currently under construction in the Cummins Lodge area. We also have another 100 homes that is under construction in Prospect area for low-income earners. And we are just weeks away from starting the construction of our first set of homes in Region 10 as part of our 1,000 homes project that was promised to the people of Region 10. So and that's just on the housing sector, and I can go on and on. There's a long list of achievements there in the housing sector, and we haven't even gone to the water sector again. But I don't want to usurp your interview. So.
My interview. Equal to that, you talk about housing and providing housing. You've had to deal with some issues of irregular squatting, if you put it that way. Treating with that issue is a little sensitive in a few regards. How would you say that your ministry has handled treating with squatters as you look to regularize or bring structure within the housing industry?
I'm very pleased that you raised that, because many times we forget that there is another aspect to the ministry, and that is dealing with informal settlements. And we have our community development department that handles regularization of informal settlements. And so while we strive to create new housing areas and new house lots, we still have a duty towards those persons who have occupied illegally or through informal settlements. And we don't want to neglect that section of our population. And so we have made significant strides in that sector as well. But I want to be very clear about this. I am convinced that as we continue to deliver on our housing program, that by the end of our first term in office, there will be no need for Guyanese to occupy any portion of land illegally or to squat, because there will be enough development and there will be enough lands that are readily available for us to service our population and to meet the demands in the housing sector. And so I want to discourage people from feeling like they need to squat, because when informal settlements, it hampers development. It contributes negatively to the aesthetics of the community. It lowers property value, and it leads to a haphazard occupation within schemes, and therefore it poses a serious challenge when we have to then develop road networks and drainage network and so on. So it's difficult to take an informal settlement and really raise the bar once people have occupied haphazardly. So what we want going forward is a structured type of development. It is our duty and our responsibility as government to make these lands accessible and affordable to Guyanese so that they can occupy housing in a structured way, and they can be part of a community, part of a neighborhood, and own their own homes. And so as we continue to roll out our housing program, I am certain that there will be no need for Guyanese in the future to occupy illegally or to form informal settlements.
That in essence formed one specific challenge in terms of the movement of the ministry. But I know coming in and taking over from another government also came with its own challenges. What would you say would have been maybe your major challenge, and how did you get over that in terms of addressing that issue?
I think immediately what we faced at the ministry was The ministry was kind of in hibernation because of the low performance in the sector under the previous administration. And so we had to sort of re-energize the sector, re-energize the people so that we can execute our works. We are the policy makers, but of course we have to work with the staff of the ministry, with Central Housing and Planning Authority, with the Guyana Water Inc., in order to execute our vision. So it's a team effort. And I think first we had to convince them of our vision and to convince the people of the country that we are serious about enhancing and growing the housing sector, that we are serious about our commitment to deliver 50,000 house lots. And I think there was a mood of disappointment in the sphere, so that people were not confident that they would eventually receive their house lots, because people have had applications in here for about 10 years, and so they kind of lost hope. And so we had a task of rejuvenating the housing sector. And I think once we started in our first 3 months of taking office, start to deliver house lots to the public, I think people saw that as a renewed sense of confidence in the housing sector. And we started to see right here at the ministry, people line up by the hundreds to put in new applications, to update their existing applications. And there was a renewed sense of hope that our government will deliver on our commitments and that we can finally be able to respond to the demand for affordable housing.
On the water side of it, we've been mainly talking housing. What is the vision of the ministry? Potable water out in the communities, improved supply within the city. What is the vision?
So we had significant challenges there at GWI when we came into office as well. The company was bankrupt. The company couldn't pay its electricity bill. They owe GPL over $7 billion. The utility company was rank with corruption and scandal. We inherited a staff complement that had more than doubled in 5 years. So we had some significant challenges. A huge backlog, simple things like a huge backlog of new water applications, and nobody is responding to that. 5,200 new applications for water connection was just sitting in the system. And from then to now, we have reduced that to below 500. We've already been able to respond to that. So what we did was immediately we had to reorganize and restructure the company, and we developed a strategic plan for GWI going forward, strategic plan 2021 to 2025. And in that strategic plan, what we aim to do is to bring the company and the country in compliance with Sustainable Development Goal 6, access to clean water and sanitation for all. And so in doing so, we want to improve our water treatment coverage that is currently at 52%. We want to take that to 90% in our first term in office. And we have developed the plan to do that. We have identified the areas that are still without access to water. We've identified the areas in which we have to construct water treatment plants in order to move that percentage from 52% to 90%. And so some of the achievements, for example, from August 2020 to now, over 3,500 residents across the regions have gained access to water for the first time. And this is not even treated water. This is just access to water from a reliable source, from a clean source for the first time. And this, for example, was in nearby, right there in Prospect, where there was a new housing development, but there was no water distribution network. And so we had to immediately respond to that. Luston Russ, for example, in Region 3. And these are all areas that will receive new wells in 2021. 𝐎𝐍𝐄 Parika Dam, just calling areas off the top of my head. And that's just on the coastal regions. But we continue to expand access to potable water in the hinterland regions as well. Region 9, for example, we've had significant development there. We've drilled 8 new wells in Region 9 from last year to now, just in the time that we've been in office. I have been myself to 𝐎𝐍𝐄 in Region 8 and commissioned a new well there after that community has been without a water supply source for more than 3 years. And we on that trip, we also signed contracts for 4 additional new wells in Region 8. So there's tremendous excitement in the housing sector, in the water sector, and there is a lot more to come on stream, a lot more for Guyanese to look forward to, even before the end of 2021. And of course, we have our transformational projects as well that we are executing in the housing sector. The 4-lane highway from Mandela to Eccles, and we are we've almost completed the link from Herstelin to Diamond, and that new road will be opened very shortly. All of this we have done just in our first year in office.
Very successful tenure to talk about that. I don't know if I can ask you to summarize everything for me now and what are your future plans going forward, because you've been so in depth with it at this point. But at this point, I'd like to say best wishes to you and your ministry going forward, Minister.
Thank you. And what we've discussed so far is a lot of the tangible major projects, but just so that the public can know as well that while we roll out our development agenda in the housing and water sector, that we have not neglected the softer issues and the more social projects that we have as well. Like, for example, under the Adequate Housing and Urban Accessibility Program that is funded by the IDB, we have 2,000 home improvement subsidies that will be distributed shortly. We have those in Sophia, in Parfait Harmony, and in the Eccles Diamond area. In addition to that, we will be constructing 250 core homes that will be distributed to residents within those 3 identified areas. We have also conducted the Women's Safety Audit Program in Region 3, a workshop where we consult with women about their recommendations for safety and creating safe spaces within their communities. We've also had the CESS program, which is the Community Employment Stimulation Program, where we're targeting vulnerable communities and creating jobs within those communities through block making. And so while we roll out our plans in the housing sector and we execute our vision and our target of home ownership, of making service lots 50,000 available to the population, we're also trying to stimulate the economy by injecting billions of dollars in investment in infrastructure works and by creating thousands of jobs, not only at the private sector level where there's huge capacity, but also the ordinary man who has his bottom house block making business. And so we're targeting all of those groups because we've said repeatedly that we want Guyana to move forward as a country collectively, regardless of whether you live in the hinterland community or you live on the coastland. You are entitled to that same type and the same level and speed of development as every other Guyanese.
Minister within the Ministry of Housing and Water, Susan Rodrigues, thank you very much for chatting with us, and best wishes, as I said, going forward.
Thank you, Leroy.
We have been chatting with the Minister within the Ministry of Housing and Water, Susan Rodrigues, and looking at government's first year in office. Thank you for joining us. I am Leroy Bramwell. Do have a good one, and remember to be safe.